So welcome, our brilliant and beloved colleague, Dorothy. We so appreciate your solidarity and your consistent visionary leadership. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by giving thanks to our creator, by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Dorothy, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work?
Okay. No, thank you, Victor, for having me. But just thank you for that really humbling acknowledgement, of the land in which we are all seated. I really, really appreciate that. My name is Dorothy Nyambi. I'm the president and CEO of the Mennonite Economic Development Associates, commonly known as MEDA. We're based out of Waterloo, Ontario. I've been 5 years in that role. And MEDA is an international development organization that's been focusing for now 70 plus years in economic development. We work mainly in the agriculture, agri-food system sector. And by so doing, we are touching on a few things. We are really making sure that food security, subsistence is happening. We're reaching as many women as possible. We're looking at the environmental issues that are related to food systems. And for all of that, our North Star is actually making sure that the transformation of food systems can create decent jobs in the emerging economies where we work. And I want to emphasize around the issue of jobs because that is really key to me, both personally and professionally.
Indeed, that is a remarkable body of work and such an expansive and honestly revolutionary vision that shouldn't be so revolutionary because everyone needs to eat. And food sovereignty and food liberation, food security is so important. And we know that when we empower a woman, we empower a nation. So once again, I just really appreciate your remarkable leadership and all that you're doing for so many. My next question, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work, and what are some of the approaches you and your colleagues are taking to overcome some of these challenges and barriers?
Yeah, no, great question, Victor. When it comes to the challenges and the work, I think there's lots of people out there who want to do good things. And I think for me, the biggest challenge is what does it take to transform a system? This work, I've gone past the stage of trying to do shallow work to say what's the right work that needs to be done. And that work for me is systems level change. It's working so that it is, yes, it's about individuals, but these individuals sit in a system. And if we cannot at the same time address the system, nothing is going to be sustainable. It takes a different kind of mechanics to look at systems. It takes a different kind of funding. It takes a different kind of even mindset of the staff that are involved in the work. And so for me, that is the challenge that I see. And I speak for the agri-food system, food security system. The same would apply to education and health. If we cannot look at the systems and address the fundamental um, causes of why those systems are not doing well. And we continue to do what I call superficial work of either digging wells, planting foods, harvesting crops, doing things isolated and not coordinated. I think the international development will continue to be where it is. And we know better, so we can do better. That is my point at this point. For me, that is a challenge. It is a challenge of shifting the mindset within the sector, shifting the mindset within the organization that I work in, so that we can do what I call the right things. They're not easy, but I believe that the right thing is what we need to be doing at this stage.
Indeed, and systemic transformation is never easy. It's always hard, it's incremental. And when you try to transform systems, there is that systems lens investing that's like on top of that framework where you need a certain type of leadership that looks at the long term as opposed to short term incremental thinking. So, once again, I applaud your leadership as always. So, my next question, what's inspiring you right now? What has you curious or what's keeping you up at night?
So, no, what's inspiring me right now, I believe it's, the time is now. That whole issue of timing is what's really inspiring me. There's several factors that are coming into play, and it's how we leverage it for the best. And number one for me is there's been a revolution and awakening in the global south, that says people are having agency to speak for themselves and want to lead their own development. So for me, that is number one. That is really inspiring me. I love to see that. I like to hear it and see it, try to come to fruition. The second thing that is inspiring me is that over the past, since 1945, when international development became sort of official after the Second World War, progress has been made. So I really feel inspired that how do we leverage that? Take the agency that is happening on the ground in Asia, in Sub-Saharan Africa, in Latin America, to be able to do the right thing. And for me, the third thing that is inspiring me and not necessarily keeping me awake at night is because of that change, where money is coming from is beginning to also shift. The whole traditional, all the money must come from the global north to save these, black and brown people in the other parts of the world. It's changing. You having people now who look like me and you who have the resources they can put to bear. And I'm feeling very proud. I'm feeling like the moment is now. How do we all come together? There are times now that countries that are able to also put resources to their own development, and that is really important. The countries that have realized that the governance, the tax system needs to be as strong as ever so that they can contribute to their own civil society's development. So for me, the question of timing, the question of those three elements, as I said, the agency that I see coming from the global south, the capacity and development and just abilities that have now been developed over the past 40, 50 years, and the ability of philanthropy itself to meet capital at certain places, and it's coming from a diverse pool of people, for me, it's very exciting. And how do we, become the catalyst of this kind of an environment so that people can really take charge of their own development is what excites me.
Indeed, indeed. I couldn't agree more. So do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work you'd like to share?
So when it comes to key priorities, at the level of my work, I think that there are three big things. Number one, I will start with the jobs. Very often in this sector, people will say, oh, we reach 10 million people, we've built capacity of so many people. When I go, whether it's to St. Lucia, to Ghana, to the Philippines, go down to Nicaragua, when I sit with a government official, they're looking at what are the jobs that are being created for my people. If you're coming here, I need my people to have meaningful, long-term, sustainable employment. How do we do the work we do so it contributes in building that middle class that is needed in every society, to take it to the next level? So that's number one. So number one for me, the priority is making sure that the results that we're seeking to achieve are results that are valuable for the countries and the regions where we work in. And for me, jobs is a priority. When I joined MEDA, 5 years ago, there was no COVID, there was nothing else, different social movements are not happening. But I really don't believe in though I've gone and I've trained, 3,000 people. Training is a means to an end. Education is a means to an end. People need to be healthy. All of that needs to culminate in a work environment. So that's number one. Number two, the other priority that I have is how do we make sure that the private sector is engaged? Right now, the funding that is needed to really bring transformative change in development cannot come from the usual sources. Public sector in the global north gives money. How do we leverage private sector? How do we bring other players, foundations into the pictures and individuals? So that priority for me of meaningfully engaging the private sector so there's a return is the second. And the third for me, because I work in agri-food systems, is the fact that how does agriculture, agri-food system, and I'm talking everything, plant, aquaculture, animal, fishery, you name it, on farm, off farm, how does that become transformative? I was born in Cameroon, and in Cameroon, when I went to school, in elementary school, you were told if you didn't study hard, you become a farmer. So there's a narrative around agriculture that makes you believe that it is for those for losers. And yet it is such an important part of the ecosystem of development. No country has transformed itself to be where it was as industrialized without first of all transforming its agri-food systems and agricultural sector. And so it's not going to be any different for those who are coming behind. We just need to leapfrog it. So for me, those are like three priorities. How do we work in the agri-food system sector so that narrative is switched? And also just making sure that beyond that, people see it as a viable and a sector where you can thrive and not just survive.
Yeah, literally, you're singing, or like it's an echo chamber of what my wife says all the time in the panel she speaks on in our house daily. She has me currently in a soil food science course that she just finished and she has me taking right now. And I couldn't agree more. There is this stigma around farmers. And if you look globally around the farmer protests in India, in Germany, all over, even the fact that across the continents in Africa and the global south, the largest farming associations are called peasants farmer associations. So there's still a stigma associated with growing food, agricultural development, and not being a valuable contributor to society, which makes no sense. Everyone needs to eat. So I really think that there's something there, and there's a lot of work that has to be done in terms of building the capacity of young people to understand and recognize the importance of agricultural or agri-food systems, but also soil science and regenerative ways of actually navigating these ecosystems that are so important to our sustainability, and not just our sustainability, the sustainability of this planet. So I couldn't agree more. Yeah, thank you.
And I think, just to add to that very quickly, to say it's a multitude of systems. You said soil systems, seed systems, water systems. It's a group of things that come together, plus an enabling policy, import, consumption environment to make it happen. And that's why I think for me at MEDA, I believe in partnerships. No one organization can do it alone. If you cannot work in partnerships, and by partnerships, I don't mean contractors. I mean, people you sit around the table to figure out the solutions with. You have a sense of shared accountability so that you can share the results. It's not, I think we need to get past the era of unicorn organizations, that every organization wants to be the king and the queen of what they've done. They can't do it. And so I think one of my challenges, even in my day job at MEDA, is how do we build a mindset in my organization so that we become a contributor rather than trying to think that we have the solution for everything. We don't. No single organization does. But it's part of the history of the sector of saviorism, where every organization was built to go be a savior, to go save all these people out there. And I'm hoping that we can transcend that and begin to see nobody needs to be saved, right? Those are people who should all come to the table with their sense of solution so that jointly we work, and our role as an NGO needs to evolve to facilitator, convener, be value added where we need to, but be able to then, share and exchange knowledge based on what we are learning from different regions of the world.
Ashe, that's beautiful, and I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for all these actionable insights and the depth of wisdom that you naturally just bring to any conversation. So my second last question, what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
I think, success for me, I wish I could say very fully what it looks like, but I will start, I look at my sphere of influence. My sphere of influence is where I sit, as a CEO. It's one organization in a sector that has a long history and thousands of organizations. So what success looks like for me is first that within the organization where I sit, we're able to shift mindsets and begin to build a model that we can document. It's not without challenges, it's not without difficulties, but it's a model where we really want to make sure that power and agency is shifted to the global south, that we are able to build that model in our context, and so that there can be a toolkit out there that another organization can say, given my context, if this is what MEDA's journey look like, what can I do? Because we feel very strongly that it is that journey that we're going through that, it's important. Everybody may not be in the same place, nor have the same guardrails to help them get there. But if we can do that, then what I call true localization will happen. So we're looking to what does it take to decolonize an organization like MEDA? And in decolonizing our organization, it means we've recognized what colonial looks like in how we show up, what we do. And to decolonize, you now need to say, what do you need to do differently and how do you need to show up? So for me, success is how do we document that journey so that it can be available to the broader, sector and everything. It's not easy because nobody is willing to, many people are not willing to fund that journey. I think there's a lot of talk about what people want to do. They want to localize, they want to decolonize. But I keep saying they should come talk to us or talk, not just to me, the team at MEDA, to see how difficult it is, right? It is not, you have to look at your systems, your processes, your business model, your financial model. And it's a combination of things we've been working on and decide that if we want to do this because it's the right thing to do, then these are the trade-offs that are going to happen so that we can do the right thing. So
In
success to me really just looks like a different way of working that would allow us to be recognized as an organization that can really create true localization, not just talking about it, but really making it happen by ensuring that we MEDA, we now have a different role in the ecosystem.
That's beautiful. What a journey. And it's so important because we measure what matters. And I
Yep.
think that, documenting that journey not only is a lighthouse to other organizations, institutions, but it creates a dynamic where you can actually transform the systems that we say need transforming. So once again, I give thanks for your leadership and your candor. And my last question, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and our viewers?
My closing thoughts are really, I think we've reached the stage of there's a lot of talk and very little action. And, how do we go from talk to action? So we're hoping that, MEDA will put out a toolkit, we'll begin to put out our learnings, so that those who are interested can come onto this journey. But my call to action is those who have the financial resources. I'm speaking now to the funders, the governments, the foundations, the philanthropists. It is so important. It doesn't matter where you sit, the global north, in the global south. How do you begin to, shift your funding so that it begins to look at systems level change? How do you begin to look at your funding to say it's a long-term investment? There is no quick fix. It's not going to be take a picture of a few, barefoot women with hose on their necks and come to celebrate. How do we change that narrative? My call to action is let the let the anatomy and the physiology of the money follow systems change rather than continue to have the money. We have all this talk, and yet the money is still shaped and organized in the traditional way of how philanthropy was being done, 50, 70 years ago to go help some poor people. So let us reshape the money to do the right work at the right time so that this work can be sustainable over the long term.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Thank you so much for your time, all those actionable insights, your wisdom. Yeah, and you're just candor and authenticity. You bring such a deep amount of reverence to this work, but also you bring such context and background because you're not coming at it from such a transactional lens, but a transformative lens to really ensure that we don't have just outputs, but we have the outcomes that communities on the ground need and deserve. So once again, I just appreciate all that you stand for and all those that you serve. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Dorothy. And as always at Setsi, we close all things the way we began, by giving thanks to our creator, by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, Dorothy. I appreciate you.
Okay, thank you so much, Victor. Thank you for having me on the show and to certainly, whichever way to amplify, but thank you for amplifying, the voice and the work of what we're trying to do at MEDA. We don't have all the answers, but we continue to believe in that if you're doing the right thing, you keep going despite the obstacles that you might face. So thank you.